Hi folks, it's Emma Grant here from Heartfelt Change. I'm delighted to be back doing the first in a series of live broadcasts on Facebook, and you can also hear it on Open FM. And in this series I'm going to be looking at the attitudes that we hold, and how these serve us in life, or maybe don't serve us in life, and what effect they have on our health. So the reason that I am really interested in the attitudes that we hold is I think it has such a profound effect on how we live our lives, how sort of awake and present we are in our moments when we how it depends on how aware we are of the attitude we're bringing to those moments. So so for those folk who don't know me, my name's Emma Grant. I run a business called Heartfelt Change, and if you're jumping on live, then it'd be lovely to get a wee hello in the chat to see who it is that's who's watching now. And I'd like to welcome anyone who's watching now, also anyone who is watching on replay. And a big shout out to those of you who are listening on Open FM. I'm delighted to be working alongside Open FM, offering these as recordings for their shows on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so you can listen to me on Open FM as well, 103.3 FM, great wee local radio station. So my name's Emma Grant. I work with folk in stress management, personal development. If you are suffering with living with anxiety or stress, or being bumped in your life, possibly feelings of resentment, feelings of being overwhelmed, then these are the kind of areas that I can support you in. So today we're looking at attitudes, and as I go through this chat, it would be lovely to get some feedback from folk, whether you're watching live or on replay. Just pop any thoughts you have in the chat section below. So I heard someone once describe personal development as the moment you realise that the changes you need to make are not in the people around you, but are in yourself. And I think once you've made that sort of realisation, that's you taking the first sort of step towards personal development. Because I think I'm similar to many other people, where I would have put the need for change on others around me, or on things around me, rather than looking at myself and that word, the attitude that we're bringing to our lives and to the stresses that are there. Because to be honest, we all live with stresses, don't we? We've all got jobs, kids, we all need to feed ourselves, we all have to catch a breath every day, and if you're living in the city, then maybe catching a breath is more difficult than if you're living in a more rural area. So this is this whole notion of attitude and what you're bringing to your life, I think is vital for healthy living, for your mental health and also your physical health, because where we hold these attitudes can reflect in our bodies as well. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And today I'm particularly focusing on resentment, holding resentments. But winding back a wee bit and just looking again more broadly at attitudes. So the question I would pose to you and get you to maybe ponder for a wee second is, do events in your life in and of themselves have an inherent quality of good or bad. What for you makes something a good day or a bad day? Is your life determined, or do you allow your life to be determined by your perception of a bad childhood, a good childhood, bad teenage years, good teenage years, bad first job, bad, whatever your experience, whatever your perception of that experience is, do you allow that the attitude that you have towards that still bleed into your life now? So to give a sort of a demonstration of this, or a sort of different way of thinking about it, there's a lovely drama that's showing on Netflix. It's available on Netflix. It's called Eunice Emery. It's a Sufi drama, and so it's called Eunice Emery. And one of the main characters is the sheikh of the local Sufi lodge, and he's got all these dervishes around him, and they have their sessions in the day, in the evening, where they gather around and they listen to their sheikh. And he quite often just talks in stories, and there's always something running a lot more deep in the stories than it seems to be on the surface. So in one episode, he's telling a story, and part of this, a very small part of the story, is he talks of a boat, and he talks of water, and does water, is water inherently good or bad? So for a boat, water can make it float, but water can also make it sink. And I loved this, because it's a really sort of graphic way of describing how we use something, it's how we use an experience or an object or whatever that defines its quality. In and of itself, things are not necessarily good or bad or evil or not evil. So with and I think that really speaks to the attitudes that we can hold to stuff. So looking at resentments, which is our main topic for today, let's delve a wee bit deeper into that. And if any of this is making sense, then do reach out. If you're on Open FM, then you've got a longer time period for reaching out. But you can jump onto Facebook or jump onto my website and leave comments there. Or if you're watching live or on replay, then do pop something in the chat so that I can hear back as to what people are thinking, how you're sort of responding to this idea. So looking at resentments, a resentment could be it could be held from the previous day. It could be held from the previous week. So I think before I've mentioned holding like my so if I'm holding a resentment that my kids didn't pick up their laundry one day, and then I carry that into the next day, and I'm doubly pissed off now that they're not doing the dishes, whatever. So that's quite a sort of a short-lived resentment, but it does make it can make your interactions in the day not in the moment. It can make it, it can make something a much bigger reaction. It's not a clean reaction to something that's going on in the moment. You could have, say you had a sense at your work that you were possibly undervalued or underpaid, and you're bringing that resentment into work with you every single day. just reflect for a moment on the impact that is going to have on how each of your days are. So if you're already walking in with that chip on your shoulder that you're undervalued, underseen, not seen enough, not paid enough, wherever the not enough is, and you're holding that resentment day on day, how is that affecting your work? How is that affecting your colleagues? So when you come to a new project or a piece of work, you're already sitting with a grudging attitude, a resentment that you're not appreciated. And the thing with holding resentments, it not only, for me, my perception of it is, it not only colours and affects how you are in your moment each day, but it also ends up reinforcing the story that you are telling yourself. It ends up reinforcing the perception that you have of yourself. So if you're continually walking in with a perception at your work, for example, that you are underpaid or undervalued, then you are building that story, and it just ends up feeding it. So you end up being more undervalued, more greater sense of being underpaid. It's that thing of, the expression, we always, someone will live up to your expectations. So quite often that's given as a kind of, a positive, give a positive expectation, and someone will live up to that. But it's so true in, on the flip of that as well. So if you are walking in holding that resentment that you are not seen, undervalued, underpaid, then that's the story that you are telling yourself. That is the expectation that you've already convinced yourself that that's how your day is going to be. That is how people are going to be around you. So I can see some more folk jumping in on the live. So just hello to anyone who's joining now. And like I said before, any comments going into the chat is great. We're just looking at the issue of holding resentments and how that affects your life. So a lot of folk also have much bigger resentments. They actually have a resentment against life, full stop. So if you if you had a childhood that you didn't think was a good childhood, or you've had a marriage that fell apart, or you've had, I've just realised all these things could be me. So if this is resonating with anyone else, do let me know. So if you have a sense that life has not gone how you think it should have gone, then you end up waking up every morning with a sense of this is not how it should have been, and you're actually holding a big resentment against life, against your life, full stop. Now just for a moment, just imagine that you were listening to somebody else's, list of complaints, and imagine it in a really gross form. This shouldn't have happened to me, that shouldn't have happened to me, I should have done this, I should have done that. Imagine what that is doing to yourself, to your sense of self, to your stomach, to your gut, the churning that is going on of angst and resentment that things should have turned out better. And I would encourage people to, I think the first stage with this is to maybe just start paying a wee bit more attention to what you might be holding a resentment to. Just pay a wee bit more attention that when you're coming at something and you're being triggered by something, are you having a clean reaction? And I realise that this talk very much links in with the previous series that I was talking about, unhooking yourself from your past. But we're kind of really, over the next, this week and the next 5 weeks, we're going to be really kind of diving much more, in much greater detail, to the various attitudes that we have. And of course it's all intertwined. You may be someone who doesn't hold resentments going back a long way, but I would suggest that you're unless you've really walked a path of awareness, then probably the best thing that you could say is you don't know, if you've not had a look and you've not paid any attention. And if you have paid attention, then you may well be aware of resentments you've held, and you may have cleared them already. Or you may realise, sometimes for me, like I'll think that I've cleared a resentment, but something comes up and I my own perception is that I overreact to something, and I think, oh wait a minute, this isn't clean in the moment. So another example for me would be if you have had a childhood, say, where you have not felt loved, then there's going to be a sense of resenting that, but there's also, in holding that resentment, you're going to be holding on to that story of not being loved. You're going to be holding on to that story of not being worthy of love. So I would just repeat again that holding resentments, having that attitude of holding resentments, is a real double-edged sword, because it not only makes you react not cleanly in your moment if you're holding a resentment from the past week, past month, past year, past lifetime, but by the very act of still holding on to that resentment, you are reinforcing that story of yourself, that belief of yourself, again, and these things are not healthy, not healthy at all. Okay, so if anyone's got any thoughts about any of that, then do drop me a line. If anyone's got any if anyone's looking for some support to shift themselves from holding resentments, if anyone's looking for some support to become more aware of resentments they hold, or even how to start walking that path of becoming aware, starting to notice, one of the things I would say that you could do is just and this is true not just for the attitude of holding resentments, but for any attitudes that you're holding, is just, as much as you're able, start trying to pay attention to your tone of voice, because the attitudes that you hold very much are represented in your tone of voice. So just as a wee piece of homework, should you choose to pick up on it, is just to listen to yourself. And like I said before about whether or not you're holding resentments, if you've not asked yourself the question, or you've not paid any attention to whether you are or not, then the best thing that you can say is you don't know. So have a wee go at listening to your tone of voice. is there what attitudes are you carrying on your tone of voice? What attitudes are you carrying on your tone of voice, not only out the way to those around you, but also inwardly? What narrative are you telling yourself, and with what attitude are you telling yourself that narrative? So that is enough for today, I feel. Thank you so much for joining me in watching and listening. And if you're intrigued by anything, or you'd like to catch up on some previous Facebook Lives, then you can jump across to my website, www.heartfeltchange.co.uk. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak to you all, and I will see you all again soon. Cheers for now.